The man was raped.
Will turn this lawyer against his partners and push this man to his breaking point.
I'm leaving.
A new practice after a new Alias. ABC tonight starting 9, 8 Central.
Actress Julianne Moore.
Monday on AM Northwest.
For what made news this week and what will make news tomorrow. This week with George Stephanopoulos. A final test. The UN orders Iraq to disarm or face the consequences.
If Iraq fails to fully comply, the United States and other nations will disarm Saddam Hussein.
Will the Iraqi leader agree? What kind of access will inspectors really have? Has the president already approved a plan for war? With us, the president's national security advisor, Condoleezza Rice. Then, the election night fallout, the Republican sweep, the Democrats defeated and divided.
It was very difficult to get our message out.
Where do they go from here? Who will lead the party? With us, one Democrat with his eye on the White House, Massachusetts Senator John Kerry, and the man who wants to lead the Democrats in Congress, Representative Harold Ford Jr. Now from our Washington headquarters, George Stephanopoulos.
Our first guest this morning, the President's National Security Advisor, Dr. Condoleezza Rice. And Dr. Rice, it's been quite a week for the President. Thanks for being here with us.
It's a pleasure to be with you, George.
You know, there were several news reports out this morning that say that prior to the UN Security Council vote on Friday, the President approved a war plan for Iraq that includes a short but fierce bombing campaign, 200 to 250,000 troops that will establish strongholds in the country but not go immediately to Baghdad. Has the President approved such a plan?
Well, it's no secret that the President has made clear that he is going to reserve his options to use force, if necessary, against the Iraqi dictator. It's also no secret that he is working with those who are responsible for that. But I'm not going to get into what has been approved or hasn't been presented to the President. The clear point here, though, is that the threat of the use of force that is there in what the United States is saying, that is there in what Great Britain has been saying, that in fact in the Security Council resolution is represented by the insistence on serious consequences for Iraq, has been extremely important in pulling all of this together. And if we are to do this peacefully, if Iraq is to finally change its attitude and disarm, it is only going to be because Saddam Hussein believes that he might be taken down.
Well, these plans were all over several newspapers this morning. Was the leaking of these plans part of a deliberate strategy in order to convince Saddam Hussein to be serious about this and comply?
There's no such deliberate strategy. The fact is that the President has been clear enough about his intention to use force should we be unable to disarm Saddam Hussein peacefully. And the President was clear in that in the Rose Garden. He was clear in his speech on September 12th. I think Saddam Hussein understands and should understand the resolve of the United States, the resolve of the Allies, and now the resolve of the United Nations to make certain that he is disarmed.
One of the other targets of these stories, and the President's warnings in the Rose Garden the other day, seem to be the Iraqi military around Saddam Hussein. The President time and time again has said, you must disobey, essentially, his orders. Is he trying to signal to them that they should take matters into their own hands and get rid of Saddam Hussein?
The President is simply stating a fact, which is that any Iraqi general that decides to carry out orders of Saddam Hussein is carrying out the orders of a brutal dictator who has been held in contempt and held in defiance of the United Nations, and that there will be consequences to pay for that. Everyone in Iraq should understand that the patriotic thing to do at this point is to support the UN weapons inspectors with information. Because as long as Iraq continues to hide its programs, as long as it is impossible to get Iraqi cooperation, Iraq and the poor, long-suffering people of Iraq are going to continue to suffer. And so all that the President was stating, and I think stating very clearly, is that the patriotic thing for Iraqis to do now is to cooperate with the UN, and the patriotic thing for Iraqi generals to do is to not carry out the orders of a brutal dictator who has no interest in mind but his own.
If Iraqi generals do take action against Saddam Hussein, will the U.S. consider lifting sanctions against Iraq?
Well, I think, George, I don't want to get into hypotheticals here, but the United States is very concerned about the fate of the Iraqi people. One reason that the President, in his UN speech on September 12th and again in the Rose Garden, and I noticed that Prime Minister Blair also mentioned the Iraqi people, is that we can't forget them. Yes, it is absolutely critical to disarm Saddam Hussein and make sure that this is not a tyrant sitting in the Middle East, one of the world's most volatile regions, with weapons of mass destruction and someday soon with a nuclear weapon. But it is also important that we send a message to the Iraqi people that they deserve better. We have no quarrel with the Iraqi people. Quite to the contrary. We want to see this very fine civilization, these people who are educated and who want a better life, to have a better life. The President has made very clear that if the United States has to use force, then our first concern will be for the well-being of the Iraqi people, for the territorial integrity of Iraq, for a unified Iraq that has a chance at a democratic future.
Dr. Rice, we've just received late word that Saddam Hussein has summoned his parliament to debate whether or not to accept the UN resolution. What do you make of that?
It's ludicrous. Saddam Hussein is an absolute dictator and tyrant, and the idea that somehow he expects the Iraqi parliament to debate this, they haven't ever debated anything else. I'm surprised he's even bothering to go through this ploy.
So it's up to him, yes or no?
It's up to him, yes or no. And it's not up to him. It is, he's been told that he has to take this resolution because he now needs to acknowledge that he's changed his attitude, that he's prepared to cooperate, and we will see.
I want to go through the UN resolution and look at the various deadlines you set up and the consequences at each deadline. First of all, Iraq has until this Friday in order to accept the terms of the resolution. What if they come back and say, you know, we want to accept, but we have to sit down with Kofi Annan and talk about what it exactly means?
I think that the Iraqis can read this resolution, and I'm quite sure that when they receive it, they will understand what it means. Now, I want to be very clear. They don't have the right to accept or reject this resolution. They are to acknowledge that they intend to comply fully and they intend to cooperate, because this time, no one is going to have any tolerance for the kind of games of cat and mouse that Saddam has played in the past. For these games, we don't understand it. Maybe it's just this term, maybe it's just that term. There should be zero tolerance for that.
Well, let's go through some of those possibilities. They then have until December 8th and to have a complete catalog of all their weapons programs. If the Iraqi list doesn't match the list of programs developed by the UN and the United States, is that a grounds for military action?
Well, I think we won't try and determine in advance precisely when there's grounds for military action, but I will say that if the Iraqis give a false declaration, then it will be very clear that they have no intention to cooperate. This is not an inspections regime that is set up to make Hans Blix and al-Baghdadi find everything in Iraq.
Let me stop you right there. If they give a false declaration and they come back and say we have no weapons of mass destruction, will you even go to the next step? Will you even send the inspectors in?
We're going to have to take a hard look at an Iraqi regime that says it has no weapons of mass destruction after all that we know. But there is a process in place for the United Nations Security Council to achieve this disarmament. But that process depends heavily now on whether Iraq intends to cooperate. And there are going to be early tests of whether or not there has been a change in the strategic calculus of the Iraqi regime. The inspectors are not going to go hunting and pecking all through a country the size of France trying to prove that Saddam Hussein does or does not have weapons of mass destruction. It's up to him to allow this to take place.
The resolution also calls on them to list their programs that may have non-military as well as military uses. If they say they need more time to catalog the peaceful, they say peaceful, chemical and biological programs, would that be a violation? The UN, the Russian UN ambassador says it wouldn't.
I think we would listen to Hans Blix on this matter, but let's be very clear. This is a totalitarian regime. They know where everything is. They know that a lot of these so-called peaceful use factories are really dual use or worse. I can't believe that it's going to take Saddam Hussein longer than 30 days to tell the UN the truth about all of his programs that may house weapons of mass destruction. But we're working very closely with Dr. Blix and with Dr. al-Baghdadi, and we'll listen to them.
You said you'll listen to Dr. Blix, but what happens in the situation where the United States, you believe that there's been a violation of the program, but Hans Blix disagrees and wants to keep going?
Hans Blix has said, and he is told in the Security Council resolution, that his job is to report the facts. It's not to determine whether there has been a material breach. It is not to determine whether there has been a violation. His job is to report the facts. And when he reports the facts, we will go to the United Nations and assess what to do about a factual report from Blix that there has been some interference of one kind or another.
And if he reports say that the Iraqis have delayed the inspectors from going into a building for, say, 2 hours, is that the kind of violation that could trigger action?
I don't think it's useful to talk about the hypotheticals, but we ought to have a zero-tolerance view of Saddam Hussein at this point. It's been 11 years. He's played cat and mouse. He's deceived for 11 years. We don't need long to tell whether or not he intends to cooperate. And if he doesn't intend to cooperate, we should not waste the time of the world, waste the time of Dr. Blix and Dr. Alberti, and waste the time to get him into compliance, to wait for him to do this. So it should be a zero-tolerance view.
You say we ought to have zero tolerance. Do France and Russia agree with zero tolerance?
Well, the United States clearly believes that it's zero tolerance, and we clearly believe that the UN resolution says that the next time that there is a reported violation, he is in material breach. That is a very serious charge, and it would be not a very good thing for the United Nations Security Council to suddenly say, well, there are small material breaches and large material breaches.
So, but you said the
there are
United
only
States,
material
not
breaches.
France and Russia. They haven't agreed to that yet?
Well, the Security Council agreed to a resolution that said the next violation is material breach. I have to assume that France and Russia know what that means.
Let's switch to North Korea. There's a tanker carrying 43,000 tons of U.S. fuel oil on its way to North Korea, despite the fact that North Korea has violated the 1994 agreed framework. Will that oil make it to North Korea?
Well, we're working with our allies right now, and as you know, the oil shipments are done under the Korean Energy Development Organization, KATO. And so we're working with KATO to determine what to do next. The key here is to convince the North Koreans that they cannot re-enter they've never been in it, the international community of peace-loving states and all the benefits that are there until they give up this program, this nuclear weapons program, and all pretensions to it.
But can't the U.S. veto that oil shipment? If the North Korea violated the agreement, why are we even considering sending the oil?
Well, I'm not going to get ahead of the discussions that we're having about this or anything else, but we are having very serious discussions with the members of KATO, with the other regional powers, to develop a strategy for dealing with this very serious violation of international
So it's possible North Korea will get that oil?
I'm not going to get ahead of the diplomacy. We're dealing with our friends and allies on this, but the North Koreans should understand that it is not going to be business as usual while they are in violation of their international agreements.
Dr. Rice, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to be with you, George.
We'll be right back.
When This Week returns, the Democrats in disarray. What's next? We'll ask the man who wants to be minority leader, Harold Ford Jr., and Senator John Kerry, considering a run for the White House. Then our roundtable, the president's mandate, what Republican control of Congress will mean, and prosecuting the sniper case. And later, George Will with another disappointment for the Democrats, why this newly elected governor can't run for president. This Week with George Stephanopoulos, brought to you by Charles Schwab. There's never been a better time for Charles Schwab. And by Buick, the spirit of American style.
Before Charles Schwab advises me to make an investment, they ask me what I would like.
They ask me what my objectives are and what I want to do.
I think they really focus on understanding my needs before they give me advice.
The advice that they give me is objective. It isn't driven by investment banking.
We get some honest information and we get answers.
Charles Schwab really is a company I feel like I can trust.
This year, investors moved more than $30 billion to Charles Schwab. Come see why.
Ready for a ghost story? Once upon a time, I designed the cars that defined an entire era of American style. And like all good ghost stories, this one has a sequel. My name's Harley Earl, and I've come back to build you a great car.
Somebody in here?
It's showtime.
Buick, the spirit of American style.
PCS Vision from Sprint. Now your employees can connect with the office network when they're away, right from a PCS phone. Exchange email, contacts, and calendars just like on a computer, instantly.
You mean I
couldn't have said it better myself.
Introducing PCS Vision from Sprint. See the power behind the PCS Clear Wireless Workplace.
For the Democrats, the fallout from Tuesday's big defeat was swift, with House Minority Leader Dick Gephardt stepping down and Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi saying that she has the votes to replace him. But our next guest says not so fast. His name is Harold Ford Jr. He's a congressman from Tennessee, and he joins us now. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Nancy Pelosi has put out a list. More than 105 votes, more than enough to win. So how do you answer the charge that this is just an ego trip that's going to hurt the party even more?
Well, on November 5th, we suffered one of the great setbacks in our party. At a time in which the nation was dealing with one of a slowdown in which, in a lot of ways, was a reversal from some of the things that the former president, and I might even add a Republican Congress, were working to create a prosperity and growth period in this nation. I think Americans are hungry for a government and anxious to have a government leaders, Democrat and Republican, who are interested in solving problems. I think when you look at the leadership that we've had in the Congress over the last 8 years on the Democratic side, they've not produced the majority, have not been able to produce a kind of an opposition that Americans feel comfortable with. I think the American people have gotten very comfortable with the idea of Democrats being in the minority in the House. They want us there as a check, as a curb, to the excesses that Republicans may engage in. I think we can chart a different course and a new course, and one of the reasons that my candidacy is gaining momentum and gaining support from colleagues from the Blue Dog Coalition to the Congressional Black Caucus is that people appreciate and support those ideas.
But you say you're gaining momentum. Have any members who are on that list for Nancy Pelosi put their names right down, signed it? Have any of them said they're going to support you?
You know, Nancy started this when she ran for whip, and she started a long time ago in this campaign to be a minority leader. She started asking members to sign lists.
Is it a yes or no?
Well, I'm not going to engage in that because I think there was a time in our party where people had an opportunity to listen to those who wanted to run for leader and make selections. I will tell you this, our list is growing. I will also tell you that the race is not over. There are many on that list that I've spoken with who've made it very clear they're not excited about the choice.
But they haven't told you they're going to switch.
There's some that have, and that time will come. Thursday's the election, and I have great confidence come Thursday that my friends and colleagues in the Democratic caucus will cast their vote, and they will choose which direction they want to go. I've made clear the only real change in this race is me. If you believe that the same old, tired, failed politics of the Democratic caucus is the direction we ought to travel, then clearly Nancy is your choice.
Well, let's
but
talk
if you want to move forward and you believe we can chart a different course, if you believe that new ideas and new faces in the leadership can help produce not only constructive opposition for George Bush and the Republicans, challenging them when they're wrong with alternative courses, and siding with the president when he's right. If you believe we can do those things and position ourselves in a positive way to take the majority in 2 years, I'm asking my colleagues to take a strong look at my
Let's talk about the differences between you and Congresswoman Pelosi. One of the biggest is Iraq. You voted for the president's resolution. She voted against it. And here's what I want to show you what John Conyers, a senior member of the Black Caucus, said about that vote. He said, I don't think anybody is going to become the next minority leader of the Democrats that wants to go along with Bush on the war. Isn't his analysis right?
Well, our former leader, Dick Gephardt, led the charge in the House for that effort. I think that both sides were vindicated 2 days ago when the Security Council voted 15-0 in favor of a resolution calling for the establishment of a protocol for inspectors to get back and disarm Saddam Hussein. I'm proud of the vote that I cast. I'm proud of the effort of Dick Gephardt and many Democrats.
But most of your colleagues went the other way.
Most of my Democratic colleagues went the other way, and I think it turned out to be the right thing to do, supporting it. But the case is broader than just one vote, George, as you well know. This is about the direction of a party. This is about how we craft a message and convey a message, not only to Democrats, but to the American people. As I tried to state, I think people in America have gotten very accustomed to us being in the position we're in, the minority party. And quite frankly, I'm tired of being there. I'm tired of playing defense all the time. And I think Nancy and Dick's leadership, as passionate as it has been, as much as they've tried to organize, it's almost like the manager of a baseball team, where the team, his players may love him, the organization may like him, the fans may revere him. But if he can't win ball games, it's time to bring someone in who can win.
You've also criticized Congresswoman Pelosi for what you call obstructionist opposition to President Bush.
What I've said is I think the next 2 years, the kind of opposition we'll have to offer must be constructive. If you look at Democrats who won this last, or a few days ago, particularly in some of the key gubernatorial contests in my own state, for example, Tennessee, we had a gubernatorial candidate who worked hard, who had money, but more importantly had a message and was able to counter 5 presidential visits, 2 vice presidential visits, unlike some of our surrounding.
But let's take a look at the specifics in the House.
Even Georgia.
Do you think it's now time, for example, for the Democrats in the House and the Senate to drop their opposition on Homeland Security, to drop their requirements for union rules?
Understand, constructive opposition means searching for answers. That doesn't mean forfeiting or sacrificing your principles. Now, let's assume you're right. If indeed that kind of leadership that you're referring to, the kind where you stand and refuse to work with anyone, refuse to listen, refuse to be flexible, if that kind of leadership would have landed us in the majority, I'd probably be on the Ways and Means Committee today in the majority. Unfortunately, that is not the case. I think not only are Democrats in the Congress anxious and eager, and I must say, I've talked to many of the members that you showed Nancy's list, many of the members on that list, and not one has expressed any passion or genuine excitement about her leadership. Many of their reasons for supporting her is that we believe she can win.
One of the places you seem to get excitement is
that's the case.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
One of the places you seem to get excitement is in the Republican Party. Operatives are already licking their chops, saying they can't wait to run against a San Francisco liberal, they say, like Nancy Pelosi. Are you worried that some of your conservative colleagues may actually leave the party if those attacks start coming?
No one has shared that with me personally, but that's a prospect or a possibility that we have to consider. But I'd rather get back to the leadership styles and leadership direction. I want to talk about hypotheticals, who may leave or who may not. I think we can go another direction. I think we can challenge this president and Republicans when they're wrong, and not only challenge them, because all we did in this last election was point out where they were wrong. What we did not do effectively was show, here's what we're going to do. As leader of the Democrats, the first three things I would do, George, is number one, we'd work with this president to fully fund the No Child Left Behind Act. Number two, we would work with him closely to try to pass a Homeland Security bill. I think the civil service protection issues are important, and there are things that I think we can force him or encourage him to negotiate on, but I think there's some other substantive issues we have to work through as well. And three, I think he's right on terrorism insurance. We need to do that. And fourth, if we have the time, I think we need some kind of stimulus package for the country. If indeed we want to get people back to work and restore confidence in this economy, maybe some kind of payroll tax would be a smart move, some kind of tax rebate for them.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. Congressman Ford, thank you very much.
If you have any Democrats on, ask them to vote for me. Let's go in a new direction.
Not my job. You do it. We'll be right back.
When This Week continues, with his eye on the White House, we'll talk to Senator John Kerry and our roundtable, George Will, Michelle Martin, and the New Republic's Peter Beinart.
Roll over your 401k?
Of course.
But it's not like you're going to let it just sit there.
No, you're going to push it and prod it and make demands on it.
Then you're going to put it in the hands of money managers
who won't give it a moment's rest.
Yeah, you're going to roll over your 401k.
You're just going to make sure it doesn't roll over and play dead.
Call a Fidelity retirement specialist to roll over your 401k. Because you're not just invested, you're personally invested.
For eons, it was an oasis in the prairie. 7,000 acres of R&R for migratory ducks and geese. It dried up a century ago. But now it's back, abundant with waterfowl that darken the sky and fill the wind with chatter. The wetlands are wet again, with distant water delivered by pipeline, supplied free by Williams. Energy is our business, but the environment is everyone's business.
If you have diabetes, you've probably handled thousands of test strips. But no more, thanks to the Accu-Check Compact Meter. Just drop in a drum containing 17 test strips. Press the button and you're ready. 17 consecutive tests and no handling strips. What could be clearer? The Accu-Check Compact Meter. Look for the one with the drum.
ABC Tonight, one explosive case.
You can't try. The man was raped.
Will turn this lawyer against his partners.
Don't play games with me. Do I make myself clear?
This husband against his wife.
That's totally prejudiced.
I don't really want to talk about this.
And push this man to his breaking point.
I'm leaving.
A new practice following a new alias. ABC Tonight, 10/9 Central.
What is it about J-Lo and Ben that has us all wanting to know everything? Wednesday, you will.
This is too much for me to handle.
Diane Sawyer goes for the lowdown on J-Lo.
Getting married? Are you getting married?
J-Lo, Diane Sawyer.
So is Ben the one?
This is like being on the front line.
A special primetime event Wednesday after The Bachelor.
Presidential contender John Kerry and the roundtable on the Democrats' mess and Bush's mandate. After this from our ABC stations.
This week on World News Tonight, why it's safe for women over 50 to have babies, and the chemical warfare training where some soldiers feel like guinea pigs on World News Tonight.
K2 is the Northwest news leader. And on election night, K2 News delivers.
We are ready to project a winner.
K2 News, first with projections, first with election results, with more live reports from more locations, plus exclusive analysis from political experts Ron Saxton and Tim Hibbets.
I think it would be fair to say this is a little bit larger margin of victory.
The experience showed on election night. Count on it every night. For complete in-depth news coverage, turn to the Northwest news leader, K2 News.
What does it mean to make a promise, to offer care, to heal others? What does it mean to make that promise to our nation's veterans? It means dedicated health professionals like you, providing the best health care possible to our country's veterans through state-of-the-art technology, advanced research, and specialized care. At VA, we know what it takes to keep a promise. It takes you, the Department of Veterans Affairs, keeping the promise to those who serve.
We dial up Tim Conway.
Monday on AM Northwest.
For more on what the Democrats do next, we're now joined by one who's been thinking about running for president, Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, George. Great to be with you.
Thank you.
I was laughing at the distinction between contender candidate.
Thinking about, well, you're going to be able to clear all that up for us this morning. In fact, on election night, you said you were more convinced than ever that we must change politics in America. Does that mean that you're also more convinced that you should run for president?
I think the circumstances demand leadership right now, George, and I think most Americans feel that. And I think that we have a huge problem in our country. I mean, those of us who've invested a lifetime in public service and caring about change ought to be concerned that more of our fellow Americans are choosing not to vote every year. The great dilemma for both parties is that we're winning elections in which the majority of Americans aren't voting for either side. We need to speak to people in this country about their real concerns. We've got an enormous economic problem in the nation. It was almost absent from this race, at least on a national level. People are losing jobs. The economy has slowed down. Business investment is at the lowest rate. The average worker is hurting in America and is scared. Scared about their economic future, scared about the prospects for their children. And we need to address that. And the first thing we need to do is to just absolutely clearly say no new Bush tax cuts to the highest levels of income in America at the expense of those average workers. We need to help the average worker.
That sounds like the seeds of a campaign speech. One of your aides was quoted in the Boston Globe this morning saying that you could file papers as early as this week with the Federal Election Commission that would allow your campaign to start raising money for a presidential campaign.
No, it won't happen as early as this week. I mean, obviously, you've been in campaigns. The staff is preparing. They're doing what a good staff ought to do, which is being ready. And like most staffs, they're ready to, they're chomping at the bit. I need to sit with colleagues in my delegation. I want to sit with my senior colleague who is a wise voice in American politics. I want to speak with leaders
Kennedy
at home, Senator Kennedy. I want to talk with many people, and I need to do that. I want to sit with my family, and I will try to accelerate that. There's no question I will try to accelerate that, because I think these needs must be articulated, and they need to be articulated soon.
What could stop you from running?
I can't say at this point. I guess a revolution within my family certainly would stop me. A broad dissent from people that I respect who tell me that they think it's a mistake or something. But my gut tells me right now, I'll just share with you, my gut tells me that we need to speak to this country's needs. I think on almost, and this is not a campaign speech, George, this is what we need to do in America. And we need to get you folks in the media to help to not be as focused on the conflict and the personalities, but on the ideas. Americans don't want a war of words. The negative aspects of this last campaign I found draining, horrible to all of us. What they did to Max Cleland, a veteran, a guy who lost 3 limbs in Vietnam, left them on the battlefield, and they challenge his patriotism. That sickens everybody in our country. We need to speak to the real concerns of Americans. People are living next to toxic waste sites. Do we clean them up? No. Are we refunding Superfund? No. I mean, you can run down a list. I think these are the things that people really want to address.
But a lot of people say the Democrats didn't do that.
They didn't do that
in the midterm election, and they have to figure out what went wrong. And I want to show you, there's been a lot of different diagnoses. Terry McAuliffe said it was a failure of tactics, not big ideas. Dick Gephardt said essentially it was because the president was so popular. Tom Daschle said the Democrats didn't get their message out. Al Gore, in an interview with Barbara Walters, seemed to say there was a much bigger problem. And I want to show that clip right now and get you to respond to it.
Sure.
Mr. Gore, the Senate is Republican, the House is Republican, the President, of course, is a Republican. What does this mean to the Democratic Party?
Well, I think it means Democrats have to be the loyal opposition in fact and not just in name. But Democrats should not mistake the magnitude of this loss. There has to be a major regrouping.
Major regrouping, do you agree?
I think we need ideas. I don't know about regrouping. That's politics. That's more tactics. There was a failure in terms of strategy. People misinterpreted tactics and strategy. In the end, there was a race in Congress to, quote, take things off the table. Our party, faithful, and Americans generally don't want people in public life to take things off the table. They want them there to fight for something. And I think, George, on almost every issue in front of the country, I believe this deep in my gut, on almost every issue in front of this country, including foreign policy, there are a better set of choices. We are costing America its reputation in the world today. We're costing American businesses jobs. We have relationships all across the world that are breeding distrust now. America has never been as at low a ebb as it is in the world today on a whole series of global responsibilities: AIDS in Africa, the environment, the proliferation, our attitude about war. Remember, we're the ones, together with Brent Scowcroft and Jim Baker and others, who pushed this administration to go to the United Nations. Wouldn't it be nice to have an administration whose first instinct is to go to the UN and try to work internationally?
Let's talk about Iraq. You said the president should go to Congress. He did. You said he should go to the United Nations. He did. The top goal is now disarmament. Would President Kerry's Iraq policy be any different now from President Bush's?
Now, it would be very similar, with the exception that I wouldn't be announcing my war plans in the front pages of the newspapers unless he's doing it solely to drive home to Saddam Hussein the seriousness of the moment, or to satisfy the right wing in his party that that's still the direction he moves in. I always said the United States of America should not go to war because it wants to. It should go to war because it has to. And we have to have the consent of the American people, and we have to have legitimacy in whatever we do. That is a lesson I learned the hard way in Vietnam. It's a lesson a lot of us never want to see retaught to another generation. We need to do what we do on the global arena with a little more respect. Even President Bush, in his debate with Al Gore a year or 2 years ago, said we have to behave with some humility. This administration has been anything but humble in its repudiation of North Korea in the earliest moments of the administration, repudiation of the ABM Treaty, repudiation of Kyoto, failure to act in a responsible way in South Africa at the Global Conference on Sustainable Development. I mean, there are many parts of the agenda, George, which if we put in front of the American people on almost every topic, take education. There's a complete failure to leave no child behind because they won't fund education in America. I believe Americans want to make a better set of choices and reach for a future. They want to undertake a grander design, if you sense, with our lives and with our nation's goodwill.
You mentioned right at the top of this interview it was time to freeze the Bush tax cut now, freezing the one for the upper rates, I would presume.
Yes.
But even
give a tax cut to the middle American, to the person who's playing by the rules, who goes to work, and who feels the most threatened in America today, who knows the system is rigged to some degree against them.
Even people in your own party have criticized you and others for equivocating on that during this campaign.
Never equivocate. I said during this campaign, I was very clear. I said this months ago on national television. I said we should not allow new Bush tax cuts to go into effect. Now, that wasn't the party position. It wasn't heard everywhere in the country. And you'll notice that some of those who were Republican light, who went with the president on that issue, lost in their races. I don't think it got them anywhere.
You also mentioned earlier in the interview Max Cleland, senator from Georgia, who lost a big race. And the issue the president used the most in that campaign was this issue of homeland security. He's now called for this in the lame duck session, called for it to be passed. Do you think it's time for the Democrats now to put that issue aside, agree with Bush on the issue of civil service protections, get it passed?
I think we should have gotten it passed before. We should have passed it. We should pass it now. We can pass it. I'm confident we will. But to turn around and suggest, however political it may have been, that Max Cleland didn't care about Homeland Security, to run an advertisement with Osama bin Laden's image in the advertisement and suggest that this man's patriotism is less than Mr. Chambliss or others who didn't run, I think that is a disgraceful step in American politics. It just indicates why people don't vote, why they don't care.
It may be disgraceful, but it's also a sign of what could happen. Exactly, it works.
And, I'm ready for it. I mean, let me tell you something. I hope they try that. If they want to go that route, I'm prepared to go that route. And I've got a bunch of veterans around this country who are prepared to stand up and define patriotism in ways these guys never understood.
But it's not just patriotism that's hurt the Democrats in the South, and it was a near wipeout for the Democrats in the South this time.
But there are a lot
it's
of
guns, it's gay rights,
George,
it's
there are a lot
values
of different
issues.
reasons. Look, I'm a hunter. I enjoy going hunting. I'm prepared to stand up and defend common sense on guns. Common sense. Every
Does that
mother
mean
in
no
America.
new gun laws?
It depends what it is. I mean, don't be arbitrary about it. Is there something sensible we should do? Sure, as a matter of common sense. But as a former prosecutor who ran one of the largest district attorney's offices in this country, I'll tell you something. We don't have enough police officers in America to begin to go out and prosecute even the laws we have on the books today. We just don't have them, George. And this administration is cutting the COPS program. They're reducing the number of police officers that we struggled to put there. I led that fight in the Senate to put 100,000 cops on the streets. They're now cutting them. That reduced crime. Crime is now going up. I believe we ought to keep that program. That's another choice for this country.
Dick Harpootlian, the Democratic chairman in South Carolina, said that, talking the election results, we got our brains kicked out because we couldn't convince white people it was in their interest to vote Democratic. Is that right?
There's some truth to that. There's some truth to the fact that we did not speak to the average worker in America, and in many cases, those workers, some of them even union members, voted against their economic interests because they voted for people who have taken their money literally out of Social Security, out of Medicare, and given it to the wealthiest Americans. These are people who have been content not even to continue unemployment compensation for working people, not to help them get health care. Those are the things that I think connect to to mainstream America, and we have to do a lot of things. We have to go out and organize in a way that we didn't. We have to speak to America with a clarity that we didn't. We have to show leadership and guts and determination within our own party. We have to define ourselves on each of these issues that I've described. But I believe when you do, on all of them, there's a better choice for our nation, and we can put our people back to work, even striking out for energy independence, George. We have a chance to make people free of these fears that tie us to the Middle East. We can create millions of jobs in America, and we can have a better, cleaner future if we do that.
One final question. Sure. Abe Lincoln, Republican, asked Andrew Johnson, a Democrat, to run with him. Would you consider asking a Republican like John McCain to be your running mate?
Oh, God, that is, listen, I haven't even declared a candidacy yet, and you're trying to get me to pick. But if you wanted to find somebody that's interesting and speaks to America, John McCain is a dear friend. I love him, and he's a great public person. But that is out of my realm at this point.
Senator Kerry, thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.
For more of that Barbara Walters interview with Al Gore, tune in on Friday at 10 o'clock on 2020. We'll be right back.
When This Week returns, our roundtable, the Republicans take control, the Democrats are defeated, what it all means. Then, honoring the fallen, a Veterans Day anniversary.
We have all the time in the world, time enough for life.
Every day, meet Elegant, the redesigned Saturn L Series midsize sedan. Get a 2003 Saturn L Series at 0% APR, 0 down payment, 0 monthly payments for 90 days. See retailer for restrictions.
If you've had a heart attack or a stroke, the last thing you need is another one sneaking up on you. After all, you've got better things to do. I know. In my case, I had a heart attack. Then I heard about Plavix. and so I asked my doctor. He told me Plavix is a prescription pill that can help protect you from a heart attack or stroke if you've recently had one, or if you have poor circulation in the legs causing pain.
Plavix is proven to help keep blood platelets from sticking together and forming clots, which helps keep your blood flowing. This can help protect you from another heart attack or stroke. If you have a medical condition that is causing bleeding, such as a stomach ulcer, you should not use Plavix. Side effects include itching, rash, diarrhea, and bruising. Additional rare but serious side effects could occur. Ask your doctor.
Taking Plavix once a day helps protect me.
Find out if Plavix can help protect you from another heart attack or stroke.
That's direct investing. That's Harris Direct.
I never thought I'd see it, but my son could look me straight in the eye and lie to my face, and I was pulled in, you know, because I love him.
I'm so intertwined with the drug, it's like almost impossible, it seems like, to be able to get away from it.
Anthony would just turn ugly. The slightest little thing would provoke him. It broke my heart when he said, I can't talk to you anymore.
I do hate ecstasy for everything it's done to me. It's ripped my family life apart, my life apart.
And we're back with our roundtable. Joining us as always, George Will and Michelle Martin. And with us again this week, Peter Beinart, the editor of The New Republican. Peter, let me begin with you. You just heard John Kerry say what the Democrats need next time out is ideas. You wrote in your magazine this week they have none.
That's right. What the Democrats didn't realize this election is we now live in a new political era in which national security is the prism through which people judge parties and politicians. The Democrats don't have any distinct vision on the war on terrorism. They should say, Bush is messing up Reconstruction in Afghanistan, he's going to do it again in Iraq. They should say Bush is not serious about liberalism in the Muslim world. People in the Muslim countries who need to go to real schools as opposed to these crazy madrasas will pay for it, a democratic Marshall Plan for the Muslim world. They should say the Bush administration has not been serious about going after loose nuclear materials throughout the former Soviet Union. The Democrats need to get on the offensive to talk about the things that the Bush administration isn't doing in the war on terrorism. There are some.
Well, it sounds like that's what John Kerry was trying to do.
Yes, I think so. And, you know, the Democrats are today saying, Peter, some say we didn't have a message, and others say we had a message, we didn't communicate it. I want to rise in defense of the Democrats. They had a message and they communicated it with ruinous clarity. That is, they said on the war we're going to support the president, but we don't really mean it. We're not really happy about this. On taxes, we think it's a ripoff for the rich, but we're not going to do anything about it. And the most important thing to do in the war on terror is to do whatever the unions want us to do on civil service protection. They communicated that. Most particularly, I'd say they communicated it in Minnesota. That was the Mondale position, stated with alarming clarity in the debate on election eve, and he lost.
But let's also give the Republicans credit. They fielded some very strong candidates. They also bypassed some of their most conservative members, even if they had the most seniority and had paid the most dues, and skipped the moderates to the front of the line. They fuzzed the differences between the two parties on some issues like Social Security. Even the Homeland Security issue, which the Republicans used like such a club in Georgia. That was originally a Democratic idea. Let's not get confused. That was Senator Joseph Lieberman, the Democrat of Connecticut, who was a vice presidential candidate. That was his idea initially. The president was initially against it. He changed his mind. He's now for it, and they used it as a weapon.
But the president then set up a trap. He made the whole issue, this issue of civil service protections, and it seemed like the Democrats fell into it.
Well, I find that I think that's one of the most interesting stories of the year and one of the least covered, because the reality of it is, if you stop 5 people on the street right now and say, what's this Homeland Security thing about? They couldn't tell you. They don't know that it's about civil service protections. What the Republicans did is conflate that with the issue of patriotism. And then when they were called on it, said, no, we didn't, no, we didn't. So what's it really about? What's it really about is that this new department, which is supposed to incorporate a lot of other agencies and put them all together, is going to have 170,000 employees. 40,000 of them are already represented by unions, and the question is, should they continue to be or not? Is that a huge big deal?
But this is exactly the point. People didn't know the details of the Homeland Security bill. What they knew was that Bush, they trusted Bush on national security because they basically knew what he believed. They didn't trust the Democrats on national security because, as George said, the Democrats voted for the war but kind of sent all these signals that they weren't really for it, and most of all, they didn't want to take responsibility for it. That was Bush's problem. When you have that larger macro picture, you're always going to lose on these detail fights.
But it sounds like then what you're saying is that the war on on terrorism is the new Cold War, and the Republicans are back to their original position of superiority that seemed to go away during the 1990s.
Absolutely, and the Democrats are a party that that grew up with a whole generation of leaders in the 1990s who were not interested in foreign policy, not interested in national security. Most of its leaders don't have a profile. They don't know what they think about it. That's going to be a long-term problem.
If what you're saying is true, then you're saying that the Democrats are about to make a big mistake by electing Nancy Pelosi leader in the House.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. The Democratic Party, if the Democratic Party becomes the anti-war party, I think it will probably be the minority party for close to a generation.
You know, and again, you know, my role here, I'm a journalist. I'm not carrying a brief for anybody, but let's look at, you know, at Harold Ford as just, and he's not a representative of the Congressional Black Caucus, but let's just look at African-American voters. I mean, the Joint Center for Political Studies did a survey of African-American voters. It's true that only 1 out of 5 African-Americans supports the war in the same way that, say, 2 out of 5 white voters or the general electorate supports the war. But what does that mean? 30% are undecided. Same percentages in the white community. 45% are sort of opposed. That means there's a 20% difference. So there really shouldn't be this vast array of difference between African-American voters and everybody else. There's a vast middle ground here that the Democrats could represent.
But the middle ground is not the Pelosi district in San Francisco. This is the world she knows. We have a graphic prepared. This will show you the 2000 vote, the presidential vote in her district. Gore beats Bush by 62 points, and Bush gets only twice as many votes as Nader. That's the world she comes from. Now, I don't think that's good preparation for leading a continental country.
No, and there's a history when you have people like Tom DeLay or Trent Lott who are in one-party areas, they don't have a good instinct for how things are going to play in the broad center. This is my fear about Pelosi.
And President Bush seems to be taking advantage of that. He came out in his press conference this week, humble demeanor, but made no mistake. He said he had a mandate. Here's what he said.
If there is a mandate in any election, at least in this one, it's that people want something to get done.
He then listed tax cuts, prescription drugs, the way he wants to do it through the private sector, Homeland Security bill, the way he wants it, judicial nominations. Does he have a mandate for this, Michelle, and what will he do?
Well, I think that the president proved in the last week that if you act like you have a mandate, then you do. So in that sense, I think that he does. I think he does have a mandate just because he's willing to throw the chips on the table and act as if he does have one. I think it's all smoke and mirrors.
What you did not hear there was the triumphalism of the post-Gingrich revolution of 1994. They said they were going to abolish 4 cabinet-level departments, including and especially the Department of Education. Didn't come to pass. The president will neutralize the prescription drug issue. He will push for tax cuts and let the Democrats fight against tax cuts. But the 94 misjudgment isn't going to happen. But what's really going to be interesting is one judge in particular, that is Miguel Estrada, because the Republicans did very well this time with Hispanic voters. And it's going to be a very painful moment for the Democrats because this is a bright, young, he's 41, he gets on the bench, he'll be there forever, and he's Hispanic.
Well, I agree that it's going to be a painful moment, but I would reserve judgment on whether the Republicans did as well as they say that they did. I mean, we're guessing in advance of the evidence here. We still don't really know what the truth is, and I'll be curious to see. I mean, in Texas, for example, you know, I would be very surprised if the Republicans got more than 20% of the Hispanic vote.
And there's one more big question, I think, and that's Social Security privatization. That is the one big thing Republicans could do to really undermine the welfare state. It would be the most important movement in the conservative agenda. Republican candidates generally ran away from it. That would be the big gamble. It seems to me that's the real question. How ambitious is Bush going to be in this new era? Is he going to be more like a kind of Clinton Republican trying to blur differences with the Democrats, or is there going to be some of this Gingrichism?
This president generally means what he says, and he just definitely means that Social Security has to be reformed. Elizabeth Dole in North Carolina, hard-fought race, didn't run away from partial privatization. Congresswoman Northrup in an extremely hard-fought race in Louisville, stuck with it right to the end and won.
We'll get back to that next week, but before we go this week, I want to have one final note. The prosecution in the sniper case, John Mohammed and John Malveaux, was sent to Virginia, and John Asheroff made it pretty clear why he chose Virginia.
It is imperative that the ultimate sanction be available for those who have committed these crimes.
Michelle, I take it you think that's the wrong criteria.
Well, what the Attorney General is saying is that he was venue shopping. He was venue shopping for a place that would execute the juvenile, because all of the jurisdictions available here all have the death penalty available for adults. So what he's really saying is they're looking for a place that you can execute a juvenile. And I just simply feel a responsibility to point out that the public discussion here bears no resemblance to the consensus on the death penalty, even for adults, because there is not one in American life. When life without parole is available as a penalty, Americans are split right down the middle. And the only other thing I think is important to point out is that every other nation in the world has joined the international agreements prohibiting the execution of juvenile offenders. And at a point, and this is not to say that these crimes are not horrendous, because they are, because many of the juveniles who are presented for the death penalty have committed some horrendous acts. The issue is not the crimes they have committed. The issue is, what does it say about the United States that it is virtually alone? One other point, since 1990, juvenile offenders are only known to have been executed in the Congo, Iran, Pakistan, Yemen, Nigeria, and Saudi Arabia, and the United States. The United States outstrips them by far. Is that the company the United States wants to keep? That's the question.
The question is not whether we're alone, but whether we're right. The Supreme Court has spoken clearly that says executing someone 15 or under violates the Eighth Amendment prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment. Above that, it's a state decision. Virginia is more hospitable to capital prosecutions, and I don't think there's anything wrong with, you say shopping for, getting a jurisdiction most apt to suit the crime.
You know, state decision actually raises an interesting point. The Bush administration supposedly believes in local control. Ashcroft keeps overruling in case after case local authorities on the death penalty. Now he didn't allow the states to get together and make their decision. I think that's a problem.
And that's the last word. Okay. We're going to be right back.
Make the most of it.
Applying innovative strategies to your cash makes a lot of sense right now. A Merrill Lynch financial advisor might say, when your money works better, so does everything else. There's always a smart place for your money. Together, we can find it.
Do you know the warning signs of osteoporosis? Unfortunately, there aren't any. That's why I got a bone density test. It's quick and painless.
Ask your doctor about a bone density test and if Fosamax Once Weekly is right for you. Fosamax Once Weekly is for postmenopausal women at risk for or with osteoporosis. It's proven to help reverse bone loss. And it's hormone-free. You should not use Fosamax if you have certain disorders of the esophagus, are unable to stand or sit upright for 30 minutes, have severe kidney disease or low blood calcium. Use with caution if you have stomach or digestive problems. Stop taking Fosamax and tell your doctor if you develop new or worsening heartburn, difficult or painful swallowing, or chest pain, because these may be signs of serious upper digestive problems.
Why wait? Ask your doctor about a bone density test.
Fosamax Once Weekly, proven to help reverse bone loss.
Our children live 8 hours away, and they've never written a letter in their life. They do email. So maybe it's time we do it too.
We're Household, and we're giving over 50 million buyers more buying power because for nearly 125 years, we've understood the hopes and financial needs of everyday people. Household, helping everyday people, every day.
Michaels and Madden are here for Monday night. Raiders, Broncos, 9 Eastern.
Beautiful women are being victimized all over the city. The pressure is building at the 15th precinct.
Don't tell me we nailed the wrong guy.
Even the man in charge could make a fatal mistake. An all-new Blue ABC Tuesday, 10/9 Central. Viewer discretion advised.
George, the elections made you ponder the Constitution.
George, on an otherwise dreary election day for Democrats, they did capture some big state governorships in Illinois, Pennsylvania, and in Michigan, this woman, Jennifer Granholm, more about whom in a moment. It is among governors that most presidents are found. 4 of our last 5 presidents had been governors. Of course, many senators fancy themselves future presidents, but only 3 presidents have been elected from Congress. Garfield, Harding, Kennedy, that's all. Michigan's Granholm, a graduate of Berkeley and Harvard Law School, now governs a swing state with 17 electoral votes. She has formidable political skills. It would be sexist to note that she is attractive, so don't. But do note this. She would already be on the Democrat short list of a spot on the national ticket, but for one thing. This, a clause in the U.S. Constitution that says, no person except a natural-born citizen shall be eligible to the office of president. Granholm was raised in America, but was born in Canada. Hence, she can never be president or vice president. Those are the only offices from which immigrants are barred. The Constitution's framers worried that foreign powers might meddle in presidential politics, might even help elect an immigrant with loyalties to his old country. In the fluid, unformed politics of America's founding era, such worries were not foolish, but today they are. Granted, someone new to America, someone not deeply familiar with American values, should not be president. But many people born here have less appreciation of America's values than do persons who have chosen to emigrate here. Do we still need a constitutional provision that says Bill Clinton can be president, but Henry Kissinger can't be? Please. So perhaps we should amend the Constitution, deleting that restriction of the presidency to natural-born citizens. Call this the Granholm Amendment.
Thank you, George. I'll be back with a special briefing book for Veterans Day.
At Pfizer, we search for medicines to improve life and for ways to ensure that every American has access to the medicines they need. Pfizer has had programs in place for the past 20 years, helping Americans without health insurance get our prescription medicines free. We've already helped millions of people in need. Because we firmly believe access to medicines shouldn't be limited by a limited income. Pfizer, life is our life's work.
I don't think there was a question of whether we were getting good advice or not from our old broker. We weren't getting advice.
Our old broker would call us up whispering about some new hot stock tip.
I don't think I ever made a dime on any stock tip that any broker ever gave me.
My old broker, unless I called him, he would never call me.
For a lot of years, I just tolerated that type of treatment, and then I decided I would move my money to Schwab.
This year, investors moved more than $30 billion to Charles Schwab.
I think Charles Schwab's actually almost the opposite of a Wall Street firm.
I call up and the man is there, and it makes me feel so great.
When I ask a question, they don't give me jargon. They just give me an answer that I can understand.
There's absolutely no pressure to trade, to sell.
I have no regrets whatsoever about moving my money from my old broker over to Schwab.
I think they just get it.
Come see why there's never been a better time for Charles Schwab. Call 1-800-4-SCHWAB or log on to schwab.com.
Everyone's mad about Scotch Plaid.
I'm mad about Plaid, all the things you can do. I'm mad about Plaid, yeah, I'm sticking with you. He's so mad about, she's so mad about, they're so mad about, we're mad about Plaid. Mad about Plaid, all the things you can do. I'm mad about Plaid, yeah, I'm sticking with you. I'm mad about Plaid.
Scotch brand has the perfect tape for whatever you need to do. Scotch, great ideas that stick.
What are these? Magic Business Binoculars. How do they work? You look through them, you see the future of business. Wow. The future sure looks different.
What do you see?
It's a 3D holographic projection of the world to come.
Things move fast. Everything's integrated. Everything works in real time.
How'd we get everything to work?
I don't know. It says I need another quarter.
So many think this man should be sitting in the Oval Office.
Were you cheated out of the presidency?
Now that Bush and the Republicans have trounced the Democrats again, will he fight back?
Do you have the heart to go through all of this again?
Al Gore, for the first time since the most dramatic night in American politics. A Barbara Walters exclusive, 2020 Friday.
In this week's briefing book, with U.S. forces engaged in a global war against terrorism and preparing for a possible war with Iraq, we pause to remember those who served. To mark the 20th anniversary of the Vietnam War Memorial, all the names on those granite slabs are being read aloud.
Gene Young, Rodolfo P.
All 58,229.
Raymond John
One by
Ashdown.
one. And among the many veterans who will be there, a father and son. Alan McNeil served in the Army during World War II. His son Dell was with the 101st Airborne Division in Vietnam, where he was wounded and all but left for dead. Tomorrow, for the first time, they will visit the War Memorial. And that's where we'll end today.
Jerry N. Creasy, Gaspar Cruz Lebron, Jerry James Curtis, William John Dawson.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source. ABC News, now traveling to all 50 states in 50 weeks in search of America.
Sasha Cohen, Shenny Kirk, Skate Canada, today on ABC.
If you're having a hard time talking to your kids, you're not alone. One day you open your eyes, only to find a stranger scowling back at you. How can this be the same sweet child who used to run to you with open arms? Do you really even know her now? How does she spend her days? Who are her friends? What problems does she have, and how is she dealing with them? It may not feel like it, but she needs you now, more than ever. The people at the Girls and Boys Town National Hotline understand this and have put together a free brochure with suggestions on how to reach out and get through to your kids. Call toll-free at 1-800-448-3000. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, anytime. This is Ed.
Deadly Warning. Next time on Nova.
Here on OPB, Tuesday night at 8.